Hello everyone, back to today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. This will take us to around the 23rd of October. We'll be able to extend out a little bit beyond that with the GFS, which runs to just over 2 weeks. We'll also have a look at Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. We'll begin with what's going on in the Atlantic Ocean. And we'll also have a look at the latest observations. Very warm afternoon out there this afternoon, so I'll bring you up to date with all of that very shortly. Just to say that today's first video was the weekend forecast, and it's going to be quite a changeable week coming up, but a lot of dry weather down in the south. There will be some rain at times in the north. After a very warm start today, temperatures will be cooling down back close to average. Have a look at that, see what you think. So we're going to start off with the latest in the tropical Atlantic. Now, things are much more simplified. We've only really got one storm left. Nadine is gone, so all we've got left now is Hurricane Leslie, just here in the extreme right-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it from the National Hurricane Center. Otherwise, there's not a huge amount going on. Let's see what is happening with Hurricane Leslie. So currently a Category 1 hurricane, giving sustained winds of 75 miles an hour, gusts probably not too far off 100 miles an hour. And this storm is moving into Portugal, so really unusual to see this. This hurricane season has been throwing up a lot of unusual sort of quirks. This is another one. So the current position of Hurricane Leslie is just there, not all that far from the Portuguese coast. By the time we get through to the end of today, Leslie probably down to a post-tropical hurricane by then, or a post-tropical storm, moving into Portugal, making landfall somewhere around there, and then moving on as a post-tropical storm, and then eventually a post-tropical depression inland into Spain. Now that will be the end of Leslie, so Hurricane Leslie has been meandering around as either a tropical storm or a hurricane, at times post-tropical, you name it. This system has been doing it over the past couple of weeks. This should finally, as it gets inland into Spain, be the end of Leslie. But ending in a really unusual fashion, moving through Portugal and into Spain as well. I'm sure there's some very significant warnings in force at the moment for Portugal and Spain. I would have thought primarily from rain, perhaps less so from wind, except on that Portuguese coast. But I will think there's going to be a lot of heavy rain in Portugal and Spain over this weekend. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on, maybe newsworthy events taking place down there in Iberia as what is currently Hurricane Leslie moves in to that southwestern corner of Europe. And then once that's gone, it looks like things will be going quiet in the tropical Atlantic after that, because there's no other disturbance areas at the moment. We'll keep monitoring though. We've still got the rest of October to go. Sometimes even November can throw up tropical storms and hurricanes. So by no means certain that this is the end of the season. We might have some more developments in the next couple of weeks in particular. CT is looking like this, so we're provisional now up to the 12th of October, and we're standing at the moment at 13.1, an anomaly of 1.2 degrees above average. So we have gone a bit above average now for October, and this doesn't take into account last night's exceptional warmth and today's exceptional warmth either. So this will rock it up quite a bit when it updates tomorrow. That will probably be the peak for the month though, and then after that it should gradually start to slide away, I think, as we're moving through the coming weeks. So again, I'm still not anticipating a particularly large deviation either way, despite the fact that we've got this very warm spell that we're going through at the moment. I think overall we're probably going to be within a degree of average, really. So I don't think it'll be a big deviation either way this month, but we should wait and see. We've still got the second half of October to go. As I said, it's a really warm afternoon out there this afternoon. Latest observations from XC Weather are looking like this, and the warmth is very much in this southeastern and east part of the country. So, for example, Scampton is at 24 degrees in Lincolnshire, and Wittering is at 24 degrees as well. Church Lawford, 23 in the middle of the Midlands. Let's go further south. Benson, Oxfordshire at 23 degrees there. Northolt is at 24. London City Airport at 24 as well. Stansted is up to 25 degrees. 25 is around what we need to have the warmest October day on record. So I think that record is going to fall. So there's another hour or so of warming still to go. Cambridge is at 25 degrees. Lakenheath, Royal Air Force Base is at 25. Let's find a few more places. Marham, 25 degrees there. Let's see if we can find somewhere else. Norwich is at 24. Weybourne on the East Anglian coast is at 26 degrees. So that would be that's a record. If that's right, we have broken the all-time temperature record for the 13th of October date record. Not for October overall. The overall maximum temperature for October is close to 30 degrees. I think set in on the 1st of October 1985. If I'm wrong with that, someone will correct me. I do get these numbers a bit mixed up, I have to admit. So if I'm wrong on that, I'm sure someone will correct me. But I think the highest overall October maximum temperature is near 30 degrees, around 29 point something, on the 1st of October 1985. So this won't be the warmest October day on record, but it will be, if that's right, Weybourne 26 degrees, that will be the warmest October the 13th on record. Very different story up in the north though. So Strathallan in southeastern parts of Scotland at just 11 degrees, 52 Fahrenheit. Aboyne at just 10 degrees. Aberdeen at 12. And then we go to Inverness, just 10 deurees there. Tulloch Bridge stuck under double digits at just 9 degrees. It's pouring with rain there as well. And Loch Glascarnock is at 9 degrees also. So very, very different story, almost like two countries really, from the northwest to the southeastern part of the country today. Northern Ireland stuck at just low double-digit temperatures, 12 degrees there at Belfast. But again, come back to Weybourne. If that temperature is right, I assume it's not been verified by the UK Met yet, but if it's right, 26, I think that makes this the warmest October the 13th on record. So really dramatic developments today out there. And if you enjoy your October temperatures warm, then make the most of the next few hours. Tomorrow, those areas are going to be seeing something like a 10 to 15 degree temperature drop. These areas here, so where we're into the mid-20s Celsius, you're going to be barely into the mid-teens, probably low teens Celsius tomorrow. To be pouring with rain. And very, very different day coming up tomorrow, I can assure you of that. And after that, there's no sign of us returning to those kind of warm temperatures. Probably not until next April or even next May or June. You never know with the weather, but I suspect we won't be going back into mid-20s Celsius again until sort of May, possibly even later on than that. So make the most of the next few hours is the message if you enjoy that kind of weather. Right, so let's have a look at 500 millibar high anomaly flow charts for next week to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which I'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. We find that we've got above average heights in the 7 to 10 day time frame, extending through the UK from the Atlantic and going into northern parts of Europe as well, with below average heights out to the northwest. So returning to this north-south split, really, I suppose, with the jet stream doing something a bit like that. Be a reasonable amount of dry weather down in the south. Not totally dry, there'll be some bands of rain pushing through at times, but the most unsettled conditions will be in the north and in the west. GFS looking very, very similar. It's slightly aligned, slightly differently aligned, but basically the same idea, with below average heights again to the north, and then we've got these above average heights to the south and the southwest of the country, bringing the westerly jet stream across the Atlantic like that. Most of the settled conditions would be in the north, driest conditions would be in the south, but not totally dry down in the south. So, GFS temperature and precipitation, the sample is looking like this. We're at Loughborough in the Midlands today, and the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Loughborough. Obviously starting very warm at the moment. There's the upper air temperature, not all that far from 15 degrees at 850 HPA. And if this kind of temperature happens in the middle of summer, that's when we get up into the 30s Celsius, into the sort of mid-80s Fahrenheit. So not a surprise that it is still pretty warm with this sort of upper air temperature in October. But you can see the temperatures are sliding away. So by tomorrow and inside of next week, going a little bit cooler than average. In fact, really much of next week is looking a little bit cooler than average from an upper air temperature perspective. There is a bit of a temperature rise just there around Tuesday, but relatively cool really with those upper air temperatures through the coming days. Then we go into next weekend, another push up in the temperature taking place, not going back to anywhere near to the level that we're at today, but it probably turns a bit warmer again at the start of next weekend. And then this final week of October, this period just here, still the hints are there that we could bring some colder air in for this final week of October. Not all ensemble members are doing it, and you wouldn't expect that because it's in the extended range. But there are several ensemble members that through this period, at least for time anyway, are getting close to -5 at 850 HPA. And that's sort of proper cold air. That would be cold enough in the final week of October to probably produce snow across Scotland. It would probably also be cold enough to produce widespread night frost if the skies are clear. One or two ensemble members do actually go underneath -5 at 850 HPA. They are outliers, but one or two are actually going even colder than that. But many of these ensemble members are getting quite close to -5 at 850 HPA through this last week of October. And so I think that will be what we'll be focusing on in next week's updates. Will we pull down cold air from the north? I think most of these are bringing air down from the north. Will we bring down cold air from the north? And if we do, how cold could it get? That will probably be something we'll be looking at in the videos next week. As far as precipitation is concerned, these have trended drier again over the past few days for England and Wales anyway. So you remember 2 or 3 days ago, these actually looked quite wet, these ensemble charts, but now not overly so. This precipitation spike just here is associated with tomorrow's wet weather that's introducing this drop in the temperature. Once that's out of the way, basically much of the coming week is going to be dry down in the south. Not totally so. You see there are 1 or 2 precipitation spikes. So a couple of bands of showery bursts will be moving in from the northwest, but most of the rain in the weekend, this is all covered by weekend forecast of course, but most of the rain in the weekend will be confined to the north and west. This final week of October, this period just here, again, not all that many precipitation spikes really. Considering this is like the middle of autumn, you would expect that to look a lot wetter than that is doing. So, again, the dry spell goes on. We've been in this prolonged dry spell since May. We have had some wet days. We're going to get another one of those tomorrow in the eastern part of the country. It will be thoroughly wet tomorrow, but the rain when it comes is not being sustained, and in between we're still getting these long stretches of pretty dry weather. It's very early days, there's no reason to be concerned about this at the moment, but after a hot summer we are going through a dry autumn. I think we can say that quite definitively now for the south and the east. We've got winter and spring to go, so at any point this could well make itself up. But if we was to get to the end of next spring, we hadn't had any appreciable rainfall, and by that I mean sustained over, by now we need to sustain it by over sort of 4 to 6 weeks, I think, 4 to 6 week wet spell. If we get to next summer and we haven't had a sustained spell of wet conditions. Things might get a bit critical next summer in terms of drought, but of course it's a really long way off that. At some point in the next few months you would suspect we will go for an extended wet period, so let's just wait and see. Although autumn is trending drier after the very dry summer, doesn't necessarily mean that winter and the following spring will do so. Temperature anomalies are coming out a little bit warmer than average from the 13th to 21st of October. Maybe a little bit surprisingly so, given that a sample for the next week does actually look quite cool. But I assume a lot of this is down to what's happening right now. It is exceptionally warm, especially across England and Wales, and so this exceptional warmth that we've got at the moment is probably skewering the anomaly for the week. So once today is out of the way, I've got a feeling these will probably trend cooler from tomorrow onwards, these charts, but we should wait and see on that. Precipitation wise, so highlights what I was saying really. In the north and west we're close to average with precipitation, but we still have this mainly dry weather going on for England and Wales, despite quite a wet day coming up tomorrow. So this is GFS is looking for Tuesday, with high pressure ridging into the south, but low pressure up to the north. There'll be cloud and rain spreading south and east across the country. Wednesday next week takes us to a relatively cool day. The wind is in from the northwest, but there'll be a reasonable amount of dry weather with sunny spells. The second half of next week keeps this ridge going into the south, but low pressure continues up to the north, so always most settled in the northwest, driest conditions in the south and the southeast. Next weekend looks like that. High pressure again, never too far away from the south-southwest, bringing a reasonable amount of dry weather to England and Wales. Again, looks more unsettled with those westerly winds for Scotland and the Northern Ireland too. We're running up to day 10, and the broad pattern is still continuing with high pressure just out to the southwest of the UK, giving much of England and Wales and the Republic of Ireland relatively settled conditions, protection from those Atlantic winds, but further north it looks a little bit more unsettled and showery up there. In the more extended time frame of this GFS run, we take that high pressure a little bit further away from us into the middle of the Atlantic. Pull down these pretty cold northwesterly winds, so the hint's still there with a little bit of a northerly snap as we go through this final week of October. This is Friday 26th. It's a very long way out. It's 324 hours away. But you see, we are bringing down quite a cold northerly then. Certainly I would have thought that's cold enough for widespread night frost if the skies are clear. And I assume these northerly winds would be bringing snow showers into northern and eastern parts of Scotland. Doesn't last all that long. The wind backs into the west as we head into the end of a GFS run, and that's how we finish up right at the very end on Monday, 29th of October, with high pressure again in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, low pressure up to the north. And probably, if we could run on a day or so beyond this, probably another northerly plunge, I suspect, would take place. Certainly this last week of October, the hints are still there, but it could get quite cold from the north. ECMWF looks like that, so again, high pressure into the south on Tuesday, more unsettled in the north. That's Wednesday to Thursday, when again ridging is out to the west of the country. Quite cool though, with the air coming from a north or northwesterly direction. Into next weekend, we have this ridge extending from the Atlantic into the UK. It does look a little bit more unsettled for northern and western parts of Scotland. And then we go into extended range with the ECM. And again, fronts toppling around the edge of this high pressure from the north, then running down the eastern side, will bring showery bursts of rain to northern and eastern parts of the country. Driest weather is in the west and southwest, close to this ridge of high pressure. Quite cool there at day 10, with the wind in from a north or possibly even slightly northeasterly direction. Then we've got the GEM, all looking very similar on Tuesday, with high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. Through the course of next week, again, we have this high pressure ridging into the south, the second half of next week, but it looks more unsettled out to the north and to the west. Into next weekend, a little bit more influence from high pressure with the GEM. In a way, it looks a bit different, doesn't it, the GEM? That's how things look at day 10. Actually, probably not all that far from what the ECM is showing at day 10. That's the ECM, that's the GEM. They're not all that far apart, really. So high pressure remains a important player in the weather out to west of the country. A reasonable amount of dry weather, but both models probably seeing quite cool air coming around the top of that high pressure from the north or a little bit northeasterly. by the time we get through to day 10. Finally, just show you the charts for Beijing Climate Centre next 40 days. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period takes us from the 11th to the 20th of October, with below average heights out to north and west, bringing the jet stream through. You'll notice above average heights are down to the south, though, so southern parts are going to get the driest weather, northern parts of the country are most unsettled. Looks like we all go unsettled in the next 10-day period. This is the 21st through to the 30th of October, with below average heights sinking down into the country as the above average heights pull out into the middle of the Atlantic. Quite cool air as well, with a northwesterly flow setting up there for the final 10 days of October. Into November, quite a big change takes place. This is the 31st of October to the 9th of November, with above average heights building over and a little bit to the east of the country as well. So low pressures in the Atlantic and probably bringing kind of like a southeasterly flow there. That could be quite cold, maybe frosty and foggy, that sort of weather through the first week or so of November. And then another change as we go from the 10th through to the 19th of November, with below average heights coming back to the west. The above average heights are moving out to the east of Europe over there, and so that's bringing the Atlantic back, turning unsettled, and as the wind moves in from the Atlantic, probably turning rather mild there as well. That's a very long way off. That's days 31 to 40, so I don't think we'll worry too much about that. In the more immediate time frame, so we've got the exceptional warmth today. We'll be cooling down, though, after today. The coming week, actually not too far from average with those temperatures, and probably some chilly nights ahead as well. And we're looking at a northwest-southeast split, so northwestern parts of the country week ahead, most of the settled conditions there, driest conditions in the south and the southeast. Looks like this goes on into next weekend and beyond, still possibly focusing on that last week of October to produce a bit of a cold snap from the north. How cold, how long it lasts, all of that is really up for grabs, up in the air. So we shall be monitoring this next week, I think. That will be what we'll be focusing on. Do we get this cold snap from the north during the final week of October? We should wait and see. Tomorrow, we've got the 7th Winter 2018-19 update. We're doing 13 winter updates this season, so tomorrow we will be past the halfway point with the 7th update. And also tomorrow, you're going to have the second written update for Christmas, ahead of course of the beginning of video updates for Christmas, which will start on the 1st of November. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.